My name is Gordon Patty. I work here at Model Bakery. I've been baking for about 10 years. Today I'm going to show you how to make our world famous English muffins. From basically our kitchen to your plate, wherever that may be. To cook them, you're going to need clarified butter, a nice good cast iron pot or skillet, and a little thyme. For our English muffins we use bread flour, water, yeast, salt, and olive oil. Here we use bread flour. It gives us the right kind of strength we need. At home, you might want to experiment between bread flour and all-purpose, depending on what your results are. Every flour all around the country is all a little bit different, and really you need to test it at home to get the best results. All right, now we have the old dough. In the recipe in the book, we use bigga. Here we're going to use an old dough, because that's what we use every day here. And we need 0.9, and that'll give us about 20% pre-ferment to our 4.5 pounds of flour. First off, we're going to start with the flour. And today we're going to be doing 4 times the recipe that is in the book, just so it's nice and big and we can see what we're doing. In professional baking, we scale most everything because weight is a much more accurate unit of measure than volume. Pounds. Right there, and that's the flour. Here's the yeast. Just 0.03 of that. Now we're going to do the salt. We want 0.18 of the oil. Our ingredients are the flour, water, salt, yeast, oil, and old dough. And now we're going to start mixing. The oil is going to come in later as the dough is developing. That way the oil doesn't interfere with the gluten that's produced when you're mixing the flour. Depending on if the flour is well hydrated, strong, or weak in protein, flour will take a different amount of water each and every time you mix it. If everything is about room temperature, you might want to use cooler or tap water. If everything is really hot, say it's the summertime, you're going to want to use just a little bit of ice. I'd say maybe 10 to 20% of your actual water weight. You want to hold back a little bit of the water. It's a lot easier to add than take away as far as water goes. Next we add the salt. Then we add all the water and the yeast. Not quite all of it, we're going to hold some back. Add all the water, and that's where we'll start the mix. And now we start mixing. We're going to check it and see how it feels. Yeah, it's just about right. And switch to the dough hook. And this is how we'll finish it. When it's come to the right point, we're going to add the oil. Right at about 67, 68 is what I wanted. And right now, we're right here at 68. So I'm done. Once you have solid gluten development and the dough is almost finished, almost smooth when you're doing a window pane test, that's when you want to add the oil, just on speed 1, nice and slow, until everything comes back together, gets nice and strong and velvety smooth. Looks like we do, and that's where we'll call finished English muffin dough. We're going to take this and put it into a nice oiled bowl so it doesn't stick too badly. And we're going to leave it for an hour and a half, 2 hours, until it's about doubled in size. It might take a little longer, might be a little shorter than that, just depends on how warm or cool it is. Then we're going to take that, divide that into pieces about 3 ounces. Here's our dough. We transfer this to an oiled bowl and let it sit for 1.5 to 2 hours until it's about doubled in size. At that point, we're going to transfer it back to a table with flour and divide it and roll it. When you're all done shaping the English muffins, it's going to go into a bed of cornmeal where it'll sit for 2 to 3 hours depending on temperature and conditions. What that does is it allows the cornmeal to really bond to the English muffin. So when it cooks, it just solidifies on there and gives you a nice crispy fried corn outside. Really the best part of the English muffin. Alright, so here we are in the middle of the process. What I'm doing here is I'm scaling out 6.5 pound bunches, or presses, to go into our machine. And start the rounding process. It doesn't do all the work for us, it just takes a nice little piece out of it. Every other piece is then finished by hand. is the correct consistency, not too sticky, not too dry. And then it also has to be very level and rounded. Every homemaker should have one of these machines. And then we take the pieces and we just round them out. We finish rounding them just by tightening them up a bit and making sure that they're actually equal size and round. Unlike a lot of things in the bakery, this is griddled instead of baked in clarified butter, and that will come at the very end. Yeast, much like beer yeast, creates esters and flavors. The only real difference between bread yeast and beer yeast is bread yeast has been bred to, literally bred, to have a few of the less esters. Here we're filling up the griddles with clarified butter, and then we're gonna light all the burners once we make sure everything's nice and level, so we get nice level cooking area, so we have an equal amount of butter all the way across the griddle. It'll take about half hour, 45 minutes of just heat on here to get these up to cooking temperature, which is right around, I want to venture to say, about 450 degrees. As far as the muffin tops go, as soon as they're cool enough to put in your mouth, just go for it about anything. But for the most part, one of the nice things about being in Napa Valley in a place that's so customary to food and really knows what's going on is that some of the complaints that you might get in other places don't nearly exist here, because people know what artisan means and what artisan bread is. That it's made by hand, and every day it's a little bit different, because if it wasn't, it wouldn't really be artisan, now would it? They're just gonna go right onto a rack. I hope everything has been a great help to you, and whatever you choose to bake from our wonderful book, whether it be the English Muffins, the chocolate rads, or some of the pan levain, which I highly recommend. I hope this has all been very helpful, and you have a really great time. Eat, drink, and be merry, and enjoy yourself. And from our kitchen to yours, happy baking.